Hey, Pet Service Pros, this is your host, Anthony Flores. Before we get to the show, I would like to personally extend an invitation for you to join us at Pierre.fm. Pierre is a pet service marketplace that helps pet service stores accept bookings through our website and super simple to use mobile app. Just think, guys, Expedia for pet services. It's free to join. There are no setup fees, no minimums. You only pay when you get orders, and you can cancel our service anytime. Guys, consumer behavior is changing, and consumers expect a simple and transparent way to book your services. Whether you're an established pet service store and looking to stay ahead of the game, or new to the pet service industry, Pierre can help you to grow your business. To learn more, visit us at Pierre.fm today. Pierre.fm. Now let's get to the show. I'm Anthony Flores, and I'm super excited to bring to you our guest today, Janene of the hugely successful LA-based pet lifestyle boutique, Pussy and Pooch, and how during the economic downturn in 2007, Janene, along with her partner Rob, saw an opportunity to bring their design and marketing background to create an innovative pet lifestyle experience to the pet industry. We will also discuss some of the challenges she's ran into along the way. It hasn't been easy the whole way, you guys, and how her self-awareness and confidence has allowed them to pivot in an ever-changing retail environment. For those of you in the industry or someone looking to start their own store, you're going to love the honesty and the vision that Janene brings to this interview. We hope you enjoy the show.
From the Pierre headquarters in Los Angeles, Pierre presents The Shift, a pet services podcast. A show where pet service pros learn the latest trends in design, marketing, technology, and the stories from other pet industry entrepreneurs and the businesses they built.
The Shift. Look who we got. We've got Janene from Pussy and Pooch. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you here. We're actually huge fans of your product, your store, your grooming, etc. And I wanted to kind of go into having you kind of talk about what you do and talk about the idea or the concept behind the lifestyle boutique.
Pussy and Pooch was born 12 years ago. At one point, we were up to 4 locations. Now we're back down to just the 2, including the original, which was founded here in downtown LA in 2007. And since the very beginning, we set about to be a lifestyle concept, even before I think people were really even using this word lifestyle. And we were always about curating a collection of very design-forward products and things that were very functional. And I think that those are a couple of things that really sort of make us unique. Since the very beginning, we've been about a very branded social experience for people and their pets, which I think is an important distinction. I believe, at least in my own personal experience, of all the pet places that we've been to, so many of those places are geared strictly for the pets, whereas we set about to create a retail environment that was for the humans that love their pets. So it was about creating an environment where the humans felt excited and inspired to want to stay and spend time with us so that we could get to know them in a very fun and sort of sexy, playful way. And the animals were just the icing on the cake.
You know, that's actually a fantastic concept. And I want to kind of get into your head a little bit. And I want you to let's back up a little and talk about your backstory as it's related to design, because I think that's super important, right? So as you started this new concept, I'm guessing that you actually took ideas from, stuff that you did in the past. Let's talk a little bit about the marketing and your backstory a little bit.
Well, I had been with FIDM, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, for almost 10 years. And they are supreme at branding and about sort of really creating an experience, whether it's for a student or just their place in the industry. Like it was a very branded experience inside and out. And I feel like I learned from some of the best on how to do that. So I have a very keen attention to detail. Every single word, every color, everything. I mean, I remember being in meetings that were like hours long where we were nitpicking the tiniest of words, because those little details do make such a huge impact on anything that you do. You may not think that people are picking up on it, but they absolutely do. So somehow that just became ingrained in me. And then, of course, combined with my personality and my own experience, I think that the combination of all of that just made me really specific.
I think you can see that if you guys check out our website, you'll see the colors and the logo, like everything it has a feel. And that feel online actually matches the feel offline inside the store, which, a lot of stores I feel like just don't get that right. What do you think that is?
I would agree. And I think that that's part of where your background is really important. I think it's a tricky thing in the pet industry. A lot of what we have encountered is a lot of people are passionate about animals and they think, oh, I love my dog or I love my cat so much, I'm going to do that every day. But that's honestly, it's not enough to make a business thrive or survive. Like you really have to have some sort of business smarts or some other professional skills. And for the ones that you don't have, you have to leverage that in some other way. So if you don't have a huge budget and you can't afford to pay those other professional people to do it, and you're not able to do it yourself, you need to figure out how to be creative and how to work resources to make that happen. Because you'll burn out really quickly if you think that you can do everything all by yourself. We happen to have been very fortunate in the sense that my husband's background in business and being a serial entrepreneur and mine with branding and design and everything that came along with that, we started out of the gate with a lot of other professional skills in our toolkit, whereas I think a lot of other people who are just passionate about animals may not have that. It's not to say that that's a bad thing, but it puts you at a disadvantage unless you have a budget to hire those people.
Yeah, no, I agree. So in case you guys are wondering, Rob is her husband and business partner. We'll kind of go into that dynamic in a bit too. One thing I wanted to go back to is your first store that you opened in downtown LA, 2007. We were on the brink of
Recession.
An economic crash. Yeah. So I guess my question to you is, those were kind of scary times. How did you guys handle this? And I guess, how did that affect the launch of the business? Because we were literally on the brink. I want to say 2008 is when, the shit really hit the fan, right?
Well, I don't so much think that we were super tuned into it because we had a lot going on. I mean, it was about 2 years, no exaggeration, as far as the time we put into putting this into fruition, between the research and the planning and the execution and the build out. I mean, it was twice as expensive and took, almost twice as long as we thought. And at the same time, we were also in the process of getting married and cohabitating. So there was that happening.
Wow.
And truth be told, at one point it was looking like the store opening was going to be a weekend apart of our actual wedding, which now looking back on it, it's a really good thing that didn't happen that way, because that probably would have made me insane. But our delayed was opening a few months, and we didn't actually open until December of 2007. And all I can say is I've always thought that part of what got us through that economic downturn is the fact that the pet industry itself has kind of known to be resilient against those types of things, and sort of recession proof is what the experts will tell you, because pets have become like kids and the whole trend of humanization is really the norm and it's not really a trend anymore, yada, yada. Combined with the fact that downtown LA is a very unique situation. And I knew and know still that how much money is being, invested into the community, and there's no signs of that stopping anytime soon. So whereas you have the people who are, treating the animals as their children, and then you have this perfect storm of downtown LA is undergoing this huge renaissance. And then the topper to this was the melamine scare that happened in 2007, which is when all those pets were suddenly dying because of food that was tainted. Everybody was coming out of the woodwork looking for alternatives of what was safe to feed their pets.
Oh, wow.
So in big box stores and places with lots of low quality food, the shelves were empty because so much food was pulled from the supply chain. So they had to come to an independent store like ours that had all premium and super premium foods, trying to find something that was safe to feed their pets. So really kind of the combination of those three things, right, is I think what has gotten us through that.
So I think with you guys at that time, like the timing was absolutely perfect then in some respect.
Yeah. And then, we had a nice little launch in the sense that the building that was directly across the street, they're one of the first in downtown LA that had their own dog run.
Okay.
And it was closed for maintenance. So all these people had to come down to the scary street in order to walk their dog. And they're like, what is this magical green pet store on the corner? We're like, welcome.
The location's great.
Yeah.
Too. You're right there in the corner there. You know what? We had a conversation in the past, and you had mentioned something about your store as a reflection of you. And I thought that was super profound. Can you talk about that idea and kind of, I guess, how you came up with that?
Well, I don't know that I so much thought of it as it was happening. It was just, I designed it for myself more than anything. I thought, okay, I'm making a career change. If I'm going to be working in the store every day, I'm going to make it pleasureful.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's kind of an interesting thing because you don't really realize in a commercial situation how you might actually do that. It's very similar, I guess, to like the approach to decorating your home, right? You have things that inspire you, things that you like to look at. In my case, I'm all about color and texture and, objects that have, animal theme to it. And I don't know, people, I don't know, you have to ask my friends. But my interior speaks to it the same way, where people come into my home and they're like, oh, this is totally you. You come into my store, it's totally me, but in a commercial interpretation.
Yeah, you hear about, directors or writers that write movies or books. Most of the time, that movie is loosely based on them and stuff that they actually have gone through. So it's kind of interesting how you kind of looked at it that way. That's kind of cool, actually. There's also a saying, if you build it, they will come.
Yes, I do believe this.
So talk about that. So when you guys, going back to, let's talk about store number 2. Was store number 2 the Long Beach location or was that the Beverly Hills location?
Store number 2 was the Long Beach location. Okay. And that came about from a client that discovered us during one of the art walks, which we were very active in the early days before Art Walk in downtown changed and became a whole other thing. This particular client lived in Long Beach and said, a store like this would do so great there. You have to come and check it out. It's so pet friendly. It's so dog friendly. And so we're like, let's take a look. Looking back on it, I'm not so sure. Like if anybody was to say, what's the one regret that you have? It might be that we perhaps expanded too soon before we were really ready to. Mm. But I don't know. I just have a feeling like, are you ever really ready for anything? Like it wasn't a bad decision to do that. It is a hugely pet-friendly community.
Yes.
And we moved into a place where there had already been a pet business for the 10 years prior. So at this point, there's been 20 years of something in one particular location. So the people who live in that neighborhood definitely, are accustomed to having something there.
That's actually huge. So I'm curious to know, are you curating these stores differently? So, from the current location here in downtown, how is the Long Beach location different?
It's tricky. I mean, for the most part, the basics are all there, and it's a very consistent, obviously, look and feel and product assortment, but there are slight tweaks to it. The fixturing in each of the stores is slightly different. I incorporated things that were a bit more organically shaped versus hard lines. So downtown LA is very city. Long Beach has a slightly different flair to the fixtures, and the music tends to be slightly different. And some of the products are a little bit more basic, if that makes more sense. They're not as design forward because I think the people in downtown LA are a little bit more sophisticated in their tastes, and the people in Long Beach are perhaps a little bit more practical.
A little bit more laid back too, I guess. You're by the beach there.
Yes. Although they always surprise me with some of the requests that they have being more whimsical, which I feel like in part that has to do with the business that was there prior to us, was a lot of whimsical, which I don't do whimsy.
Yeah.
So that I think is an interesting thing for business as well. I don't know if this is perhaps one of your questions, but how do you deal with being the leader and setting the trend versus giving people what they want?
You know, I feel like you've got to listen to the customer, right?
You
For sure.
do, but not at the point where you sacrifice your own brand and your identity.
Yep.
Like, I feel like that's been a hard line for us, because I'm sure if I just gave people what they wanted, perhaps I'd be making a lot more money. But I can't. At my core, I just can't, because it's not to say that I know better, but I'm going about this in a very specific sort of way.
Yes.
That I'm trying to educate people. I'm trying to elevate people. And I have to do that the best way that I know how, which is to influence them. And if they're not getting what I'm putting down, then perhaps they're not my customer.
You are such an artist.
I don't know how else to say that. Sometimes people need to be strong-armed into something for their own good. Like the people who want to mismatch accessories. Don't even get me started on that. It drives me crazy. Why would you buy a collar and a leash or a harness that doesn't match?
Right.
Or coordinate?
Yeah. Look,
I literally have taken something out of a woman's hand before, and I'm not even lying, because I refuse to, as a woman, let her walk out with that just because that was the correct size. I'm like, no, I can't let you walk around like that. But that's how passionate I am about what I do.
Yeah, and I don't see anything wrong with that, because you look at your business and you're like, you know what? I'm not I'm attracting a certain type of customer profile or customer. Maybe I'm not for everyone. Maybe they don't dig the design or whatever, and that's okay. I think that's fine. There's plenty of love to go around, right? So
some people might not dig the name either. I don't know if that's one of your questions.
Yeah, well, was I asking you, Christina? I was asking someone
if they were offended.
Yeah, I was like, "Can you write the full name down, please?" And she just wrote like Pooch.
Yeah, sometimes
so
people will. It's like a Freudian thing. They will navigate away from that accidentally because they're not comfortable with it. It's interesting.
Yeah. How'd you guys come up with the name?
I am super feline forward, and I felt like one of the things that was largely missing in the marketplace was a proper representation of all things cat.
Yeah.
And not whimsical shit cat. I'm talking about very advanced, design forward, beautiful things to make your environment more enriched and just beautiful, and to elevate the status of the cat from being some weird, stinky creature to what a cat really should be. So that's why first and foremost, it's upfront in the name. And there's only so many ways that you can say cat and dog.
Yeah,
everything else is already taken, or it's basic and not. I don't know. It just stuck with me.
It's hard to forget that name too.
But there's that, yeah. Well, and the irony is that growing up, I had a hard time with that word as well. And I joke about it, and I get people to just embrace it. I'm like, you got to say it. You got to own the why.
Yep. Yeah.
The Y at the end of it. It's not puss and pooch. It's pussy and pooch.
That is true. That's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
When you started, tell the listeners, like, what did you do to attract like your first customers? Talk about maybe the marketing side a little bit. Was it, I know you've got a physical location, but you're also selling products. So how did you work that out at the beginning? Because it was a different time. I mean, you've got '07. And then what year did you open the Long Beach location?
Long Beach was 2009.
2009, okay.
So
that was kind of pre-face or early Facebook days?
Yeah,
no
for sure.
social media, really?
No. Which is part of why it's challenging for me now to go, to have to do all that stuff when I didn't do it in the beginning. But that's, I'm sure, another question somewhere. But I would say part of it was I just did what I knew best. So drawing upon my experience from the Fashion Institute, we did a lot of event marketing and we did a lot of things that were like experience oriented. And there was a great word of mouth. The school had a very good reputation. And so we were fortunate early on by developing a really good reputation by word of mouth. Mm-hmm. And the events that we did, I know I've gone on record many times saying we've had more events than some nightclubs and way cooler and funner than probably some nightclubs. And that's just, it's a combination of my background in hosting events and then also our ability to be host or hostess like in the store where every client is a guest. And so it was not uncommon to come in on weekends and have us rolling out the red carpet with cocktails and snacks, not just for the dogs or cats, but also the humans. There was many times when either myself or my husband or the two of us or my staff, we were in costumes for various things, like hosting International Dog Biscuit Appreciation Day with a tea party where I was dressed as Alice in Wonderland and we were giving away tickets to the movie, which was a really big deal at the time. Who does that? In a pet store?
Yeah.
Like nobody. But part of it was, okay, I'm working how many hours in a week? I'm not going out. I'm sacrificing my social life. I'm sacrificing spending time with my family and actually entertaining in my own home. I have all this amazing stuff that I just got for my wedding. I'm bringing the fondue set.
Sure.
So the fondue set became the annual thing for our holiday party. What other pet store do you go to where you've got a full-on dessert bar with champagne cocktails and chocolate fondue? Find me another one.
Not many.
And I will raise my hat, I swear. But we did it because we enjoyed it so much. But those are the experiences that people remember because of how we made them and their pets feel when they came into the store.
Yeah, that in-store experience, I think today, you don't see as much of that. They're doing a lot of things virtually through, social media and stuff. But the in-store experience, I think that has, there's a connection that forms, I think, that we don't forget, where it's hard to emulate that through an iPhone or through social media. I think that you kind of have to do a little bit of both, I feel like,
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like now it's become very superficial. And I was recently told by more than one millennial about, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should do whatever, you should have this free photo experience, you should do blah, blah, blah. We've been doing it for the last 12 years. Mm-hmm. We created the Paw Bar, which is an invention that we hold a service mark for. That's an in-store pet cafe experience where we educate people on raw food diets in a fun and social sort of way. And that has been the most photo-worthy thing about my business in all this time, all around the world, that I have camera crews that have literally come in from almost every country to be like, what is this crazy thing with you feeding animals in store? And so the hard part for me is now I don't need somebody telling me that I need to be doing these things. I have been doing these things, but the problem is that the customers have shifted their behavior into not appreciating their local retailer and the experience that many of us can create in store for them. Granted, not all stores are dressing as Alice in Wonderland and hosting tea parties. However, your local retailer really is educated. They really do care. There's small businesses that are making an impact in the community. And the fact that millennials and everybody and their mother have decided that Amazon is their go-to for everything is really missing out. And it's totally changing the landscape on Main Street.
You're seeing that across, I mean, all industries. I mean, Sears is a legacy company, right? That's a 70, 80-year, maybe older actually company, and they're on the verge of bankruptcy, right?
Yeah, and Toys R Us. I felt so bad when I heard about that old man who probably died from a broken heart because the whole thing went out in a huge ball of fire.
Yeah.
He created a niche that never was. And I felt like so much, like there's just so much that resonates between that business and what we do. And I felt so horrible. Like, how could something that was so right eventually go so wrong just because consumers turned out to be assholes?
Yeah, no, I agree.
I don't know how to say it any other way. I mean, this is what I live and breathe every day. And I don't understand it. We're there for people every single day. And in our case, as in his case, like with children and pets, it's like the same thing. Like how many stories we have to hear about this and that and what's wrong with Fluffy and all the things, like the things that I endure and the stories that we hear from people to then have them turn their back on a retailer because they can get something for $1 cheaper on Amazon is just crazy to me.
I think you got that, the whole idea of the Paw Bar, you got that right.
Yeah,
super early.
100%.
And I feel like, I've met with a lot of pet service stores, and they're missing that piece. They're missing the piece that makes them unique, makes them different, perhaps drives people in because of Instagram so they can take pictures. You can share that. It's just, I feel like you really, really got that right. And that's where, stores are missing. And I'm curious to know, I mean, I'm sure you've walked into a lot of stores, you kind of check out the competition. I'm curious to know, like, your thoughts on what are stores doing right and what are the stores doing wrong today? Is there anyone that you look at and you think, you know what, they're actually doing it right? That's kind of cool.
In the pet business?
Yes. That's a pause, by the way, you guys.
I'm choosing my words carefully. I don't know. That's really hard to say because I am not one to give compliments unless I truly feel moved. And there hasn't been a lot that's ever moved me. I will say locally that there's 2 places actually now 3 places that I'm pretty impressed with. The first is Blue Collar Working Dog. I think they found a really interesting niche that if you go in one of their stores, they have all sorts of crazy shit that you never even knew existed for dogs that are working dogs for hunting and training and all sorts of things. And they also are really involved with behavior and nutrition and all that sort of thing. So hats off to them. I think they found a great niche and are probably doing well. The other one is a newer one, which is in the Orange County area, which is called Local Pet Market. The guy who's the owner is so passionate. His social media feed is so amazing. He is there with the headphones and the whole thing. And every day he's recording literally everything going on. I mean, I wish I had that guy's energy. I can't see myself doing all that, but he's so about it and educating people about healthy nutrition and wellness and getting dogs and cats off horrible diets. He is so positive about his message. Mm-hmm. And again, I feel like created his own little niche in his community and is rocking it. And then the last one is a new one, which is in Northeast LA, that is very LA woo-woo. But, I had to tell the guy who was the owner-founder, wow, hats off to you for coming up with a whole new niche. I don't know that it would work in a lot of other places, but, to be able to go and participate and do Reiki with your dog or yoga with your dog, or to have a service experience where that your dog is like participating in a meditation or a sound bath or what have you, very Zen-like, is just amazing to me.
That is actually really cool because, that might be, you're combining, today's world with maybe, the store. I think there's an advantage to having a store too, because you have a direct reach and you also can see a reaction from a consumer. You can't get that online, right? So it's kind of cool that by building these experiences, that is actually a good thing. That attracts people to come in too. What are you seeing that you don't like? I mean, you've gone to a lot of stores too that, you walk in there and you're like, you've got to work on this, or this could be different. Because I know how you are. We've talked a little bit off camera here or off the mic here, and I know you have opinions and you have strong opinions. Can you talk about what you see out there and what you think should change or what could change for the industry?
Probably the number one piece of advice would be less is more. People just do not know how to edit. They do not know how to hold back when buying or something. I don't know. Maybe the approach is everything in the kitchen sink, throw it at the wall and see what sticks. I don't know. But as a person with taste, when I go into a store, like even when you go into a store that's a big brand like an H&M or Urban Outfitters or wherever, like I'm like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. There's just too much shit everywhere. I can't buy anything. And I walk out with nothing because I'm too overwhelmed. You have to have space for things to breathe, for people to look at things and appreciate them. And most pet stores are way overcluttered with too much stuff. That's number one. Number two is they're dirty and they smell. The number one compliment that we get every single day, without exception, for the last 12 years is, this place smells so amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating. Every single day for the last 12 years, this place smells amazing.
Yep.
And people know it's clean. That translates into they really trust us with caring for their animal.
No, you're absolutely right.
So, I think that's achievable for most people to like, okay, well, if I'm going to change myself starting now and I'm setting new goals, how can I be less is more? And how can I clean this place up?
Mm-hmm. I think you've got a good point. When you go to hotels, there's a signature scent that they have when you walk in that front door, right? You've got that.
We've had the signature scent going for this entire time.
Yeah.
I don't want to give away my secret on that, though.
I get it.
You have to message me privately and I'll tell you. But yeah, it's a thing. It really is a thing.
That is a thing. I
and
agree.
Because it plays on your emotions, right? Just like color does, right? So color was an important choice for us. The green, we were way ahead of the curve on the whole green thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was creating the whole idea and the brand, like it had to be that. It had to be green and it had to be black and it had to be edgy. It was very specific. So color obviously evokes a lot of emotion, as does smell.
There's psychology to color, for sure.
And then the last little nugget would be music. I challenge you to go into any pet store and you tell me how you're feeling when you're standing in the store, when you're surrounded by silence, or you're surrounded by the staff people having their own bullshit conversation about something.
Yeah. You know what I noticed? I was on your website and you have really cool apparel for dogs. There was a camouflage kind of
Puffer.
puffer.
Mm-hmm.
Who pick? Are you the buyer too?
Mm-hmm.
Do you pick a lot of that?
Yeah.
Now, do you use like local people, or how do you come up with ideas? And do those ideas change based on the location that you're at? So we're here in LA. It doesn't get that cold. So I'm just kind of curious. Are you thinking about those ideas to sell those via e-commerce, or what is the thought process behind buying?
We've sold a lot of those puffers. It does get cold in LA.
It does?
It does.
Well, you know what? This year, it's
Yeah.
Look, you know what?
And
this year has been an exception for sure.
And dogs don't like to get wet, so there's that. But we do live in a very interesting place where it's a very quick trip to the mountains. So there are a lot of people that will travel locally for ski situations, but there's also a lot of people that do the whole bi-coastal and they're traveling to the East Coast. And so they'll come in for a parka or something for that. In fairness, we do sell a lot of the apparel type items more so in Q3 or the beginning of Q1. But that aside, I mean, I obviously pick a very specific assortment of things. I don't know really totally what the magic sauce is, other than I do what works for us. And I think that's largely like to keep it fresh and different. I'm very specific in buying to themes and color stories. And I try to approach it from the same way that somebody might in the human industry. If anything, I get frustrated because the pet manufacturers, most of them don't operate that way. So it becomes very difficult for me to mix it up and keep things fresh because they keep showing me the same stuff, or they don't change the colors to be different enough. And so when I'm putting things together, I'm literally grabbing from a lot of different places to make my own unique story.
You know, in fashion is your background. You know that you have seasons, right? Those seasons come and go. It's really, it's a hustle.
Right.
So how do you consider seasons when you're buying?
It's a little bit different in pet, and I think it's, I don't know, a little bit weird or different being in California where there is not so much that. It's more to the calendar as a whole. So not season specific, but to the calendar. So in particular, I guess part of my secret sauce is that I do have these overall themes that I buy for, and that becomes like my feature presentation. So I have regular things that I stock regularly that I change out, but then I always have sort of like the product edit, if you will, for the quote unquote season, which to me means my visual calendar.
Yes.
So I do a very coordinated thing between the front windows, the feature display, the bakery case, the grooming bandana accoutrement. Like all those things are intertwined.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it can be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks.
You know, one thing I remember when I was walking in your store, it had a very minimalist vibe too. Like you said, you didn't have too much product on the shelves to where you thought, you know what, I'm confused. I'm just not going to buy anything at all. How much of your product, I guess, is, if we go into kind of the tech side, how much is being sold through e-commerce versus in-store? Is there a big push for online at all for you guys?
It's grown steadily over the years, but it's still proportionately a very tiny % of our sales. But I think that's probably the same as anybody else. Even big companies will tell you proportionately. It's like, what is it, this stat? Isn't it like 5% or less come from their e-commerce? Is that true? I think I just read that recently.
Yeah, from, if you have a store, obviously the focus, I think, for the most part will be there. But if you're a true e-commerce play, like Chewy or some of these big stores, then obviously that's going to be different.
Yeah,
5% is what you...
Right, but I think Chewy's not even making money. Isn't that what all the reports say?
That's actually a good point. Why do you think that is?
It's a very expensive situation to run, I imagine, to operate. I don't know. All I can say is that our online basically supports mostly our local clientele who use it as a convenience for purchasing food and supplies. And then we will have the other people throughout the country who will make nice boutique type purchases because they happen to surf in and find something that they were looking for or something that they like. And that's a tinier percentage of the overall percentage of online sales.
So now that we're...
And in fairness, we don't have a team doing it. Again, it's like me and my staff. So if we did have dedicated resources to actually doing more promotions and changing things and making it more fresh and making the inventory current and doing all the things we should be doing, then it might be a different story. But it basically supports our business. It's not its own business.
What about delivery? Are you guys,
We've always done local delivery.
You're doing like same day. So if I buy
within an hour.
I think that's huge because Amazon can't even do that.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. I think that's a big advantage that a lot...
Tell all your friends.
I know. That's what I'm saying. You guys shop local. I mean, that convenience is big as it relates to food, product, etc. If you can get same day delivery within hours, that is a no-brainer to me. That's total value add.
For sure. But here's the thing. Most people don't stop and actually think about that. Mm-hmm. Their instant go-to is, even if I'm their favorite store, if they want the instant gratification, I think the instant gratification is the one-click shopping because of maybe the infrastructure that Amazon has, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting a better deal.
Yeah.
When you really look at it.
That is true. I think it's convenient. You're paying for convenience. It's like 7-Eleven, right? You pay for you might be paying more I mean, I use Amazon for certain things that I don't want to carry around. And you're right. I don't look at the price all the time. I don't know if I'm getting the best deal.
Well, right. And if you're doing Prime, you're paying for that. Aren't you paying for that monthly or paying for that yearly?
You're paying for it yearly.
There are other fees, but I think people have just been so conditioned to it that they just think that that's the answer, and it's not. I mean, truthfully, like everything you see on our website is not stocked in stores. Some things I may have to order from a vendor, in which case you may have to wait. But for the people who are buying the things that are for sure regularly stocked, they're going to get that right away.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
But as many times, what's the saying about how many times you have to tell somebody before they finally remember it?
I think it's, it can be 5 to like 10 times. You have to continue to get in people's faces and constantly remind them.
We've had customers for years. I just had one the other day and he's like, I did not know that.
Yep.
How many times do we need to tell you? How many email newsletters? How many social posts? And that's the thing. And that's where it just gets to be really exhausting. You do all these things and people don't read, they don't listen, they don't pay attention.
What are we going to do with these
why
people?
Are we in business? I don't know.
Oh my God. Let's talk about, let's go back, your husband and business partner, Rob. I want to talk about that dynamic and how do you guys find balance between, both business and personally working together? Because I know personally I'd have a really hard time working with my wife. I don't know if I can do it. So
we hear that a lot.
Is it like a divide and conquer type deal, or how do you guys do that?
Yeah, it has been, and we say that a lot. When things go well, we always say we're a great team. But in reality, it is divide and conquer, which can be a good thing, but can also be a bad thing because at some point you do start going in different directions. At least that's what kind of happened to us, and then that's when I think it gets tough. So
what do you guys are you guys doing like date night, or what do you do? To find balance, because if you're working together and you guys are married, I think that people can really benefit from hearing ideas that you guys have you guys have been going at it for 12 years.
That could be its own podcast. How much time do you have?
That's true. Oh my God.
I don't know.
Maybe 1 or 2 pointers.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tricky one. A lot of times when people ask, how do you manage the stress and this, that, and whatever, and I always say, I don't know. It's those cats. I pet my cats.
She's got it's 6 or 7?
6.
She's got 6 cats. Tell them how old the oldest is.
I have one cat who's 23. She just turned 23 last week. And still going strong.
That is absolutely. When you told me that, you just blew my mind.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And then the ones right behind her.
16, 15, 14.
I mean, those are still, you look at those numbers.
6. Yeah. And then the dog, he's 13. So I have a lot of seniors in my house.
That's really amazing. And you were mentioning the type of diet and then also, I guess, exercise. Do you have some kind of enrichment for the cats too? Are they clawing at your sofa and stuff? Or how do you keep them big? And they're all indoor cats, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, they don't do a whole lot. I mean, the 3 youngest ones, they definitely do chase each other around and play. But enrichment, diet is number 1. Enrichment is number 2. And a lot of people just think cats are supposed to just go and whatever and hang out. And they don't do anything appropriate to stimulate their natural instincts for climbing, scratching, hunting, that sort of thing. So, the first thing is if you're feeding them correctly, they're not going to be as crazy. They're going to be satisfied and they're going to be better balanced. The second thing is that you have to have a variety of toys and an enriching environment where, you don't only have one box. You don't have just one scratcher put in the corner that you think is the corner that the scratcher needs to be in. I mean, you really need to adjust and allow the cats to share the space with you versus relegating them to the designated cat area.
Mm-hmm.
So our current loft, we haven't fully tricked it out the way the last one was because we've been so busy. But in the prior place, we had kind of like how we had in the Beverly Hills location where we really built it for the cats, where we had climbing along the walls and basically a racetrack around the area. Like those things are really important for them, to have a super highway, not just on the ground, but above, where they can feel confident and safe and supervise their surroundings.
Whose black cat was that roaming around the Beverly Hills location?
Well, that's part of why I now have 6, because when we closed that location, we brought 2 of them home.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Can you talk about the reasons behind...
Yeah, we haven't even gone into that.
Can you talk about that? Because I think people will wonder, you started off with 4, now you're down to 2. So talk about why you closed that location in Beverly Hills. It was a hell of... Just so you guys know, I don't know if you guys ever got the chance to visit. Imagine like a high-end mall for pets. That's what they had. 2 levels. Beautiful location. I mean, amazing location too.
Yeah, it was kind of like a department store, I think.
Yep.
Not so much a mall, but more of like a department store. And it was a very interesting space. That was an interesting year, 2013. So we actually opened 2 stores in the same year. A small concept that we were testing out that had no services, that was just focused on food and supplies. And then the large concept, which we aptly named the Pet Lifestyle Center, because it was the full lifestyle experience that had holistic wellness. It had the bakery and kitchen. It had new services for us, which was the daycare, boarding, and training services. And then we had resident cats who were living there, who were not for adoption, but they were there as feline ambassadors so that we could better showcase food and products and enrichment and that sort of stuff. So it was 12,000 square feet, which is more than 5 times the size of our 2 regular stores.
Yeah.
So we were there for 5 years. It was awesome. It was challenging. It was perhaps the craziest thing we ever did, which we kind of knew that. Like people would come in and they're like, you're either a brilliant genius or you're fucking crazy. That was the exact phrase we heard from multiple people. And we're like, yeah, it's probably a little bit of both. But, we really believe in this concept that, pets are part of our family. And in order to get it right, you really need to have the full lifestyle experience. And that comes with, the behavior, the socialization aspect of it, the enriching your environment part of it, the nutrition, of course, all the amazing lifestyle products that enhance your relationship with your pets, whether you're walking or sleeping or traveling or just looking fabulous. There's a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think if the average pet consumer was to ever go to any of the pet trade shows and see the thousands and thousands of products that exist, their minds would just be blown.
Yeah.
So it's our job as a pet industry professional to bring them the best of the best to enhance their relationships with their pets.
And I feel like you guys did that at that location for sure.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I mean, every time I walked in there, it was, it's busy and there was a vibe or kind of a buzz about that location too. I guess talk about the challenges that you had and why you guys actually decided to just close it down.
So the zoning we had for the services capped us at 30% of the total square footage.
Got it.
So despite the fact that the services were so highly in demand that we were turning clients away on a near daily basis because we just couldn't service them, we really weren't able to expand beyond what was currently set up and designated for those services. That also being in a very expensive piece of property, our hands were sort of tied on a lot of things of what we could do and what we couldn't do. And we had already made such a huge investment, not just in the build out, but in securing the right to be able to offer the services, how we were doing it. It just, basically the space was just not economically feasible for us.
And did that change like during the time that you actually signed the lease? Did anything change, within that 5 years? Did the rule still apply at the very beginning? So that 30% of that space can be allocated towards the services? Did that change over time?
Yes, it's a little bit of a tricky answer because when we first started operating, we didn't totally have the proper zoning specific to that space.
Okay.
And so we had to really work with the city it was a very long and expensive process to do what we did. And without giving away too much detail, kind of how it netted out was just the maximum that everybody was comfortable with.
Gotcha.
On all sides, I think is the best way to answer that. So, and it's just, I think the tricky thing for us is that as grand as it was and looked and everything, we are still a small business and we are still a small business at heart. And unlike Louis Vuitton, who can just decide that this location's not working for us and we're going to move, two doors down the street and do XYZ, like we were a different kind of Beverly Hills player than the usual, which is, it's very common for them to do that whole switcheroo.
Mm-hmm.
But we just had to pause and just let it go.
Yep.
In hopes that moving forward, we will come back stronger. It's a small setback to go forward.
Absolutely. You see
better
that,
and stronger.
You're seeing that with a lot of stores today too. A lot of retailers, yes, times are changing, but they're also thinking, you know what? Let's kind of consolidate a bit. Maybe, and I'm not saying this is the exact situation in your case, but let's cut the fat a little. And then we could kind of tighten things up and then kind of reinvent ourselves in some ways, right? So you don't have all that overhead going on and then there's little control. One common thing that I've seen with pet service stores with the owners is that unless you own that property,
right,
the landlord, in some respect, controls your business.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys run into that issue too at the Beverly Hills location or the other location too?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and they don't care. That's really what it comes down to, And we're not, financed by some huge corporate entity that can take a hit when things aren't going right.
Yeah.
And then if you look at, if the retail landscape hadn't changed as much as it has, even just in the last 5 years, it's been accelerated with all this Amazon stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it would be a different scenario. If the store was packed with people shopping every day, it would be amazing.
Yes.
I'm curious to see other people coming on who have quasi-similar businesses. Like, do they track the people doing services to the people purchasing retail? Like, how many of those people doing services actually convert and actually do retail in that particular location with those beautiful Beverly Hills people who are only concerned with aesthetics for the most part?
Yep.
How many of our clients did grooming and bought nothing in that palace of a store?
Yes.
The overwhelming majority of our grooming clients never purchased anything in retail. And I'm not exaggerating in any way. And we couldn't get around it. We did everything. We even tried to give away free premium product to these people to try to get them to try other things. Not interested.
And why do you think that is?
How much time do you have?
Is it, are they pulling out their app to see if they can get it cheaper somewhere else? Or
there was, again, I'm trying to use my words carefully here. They're very interesting people.
Yeah.
Is really what it comes down to. Between the layers of staff and other assistant type folk who were the actual decision makers that we had to deal with, there was like confusion there of who's actually controlling the purse strings on this, who actually cares about this animal. There was that. There was price was an issue, even though they have proportionately more money to spend than clients in our other locations. one thing that I keyed in on pretty early on is just because somebody's affluent doesn't mean that they're educated on pet care. So I didn't think moving into an area like that was well established with well-educated people, that we were going to have to educate them on pet care. But it was more difficult than educating people on pet care in any of my other stores. Consider, if you will, that downtown LA is adjacent to Skid Row, and some of my clientele are actually low-income people. If I'm squabbling about price or information, like knowledge and education on something with somebody, it's very minimal with those people. With the educated, affluent people, it was like a whole other thing. I never thought I would have to work so hard to earn somebody's business by giving them value and education. Mind-blowing.
Wow.
Absolutely mind-blowing.
Wow, that's interesting.
I had a homeless man who proudly was a panhandler who came in and paid cash for the most expensive item in my downtown store. And it made his day. It made his day. It made his week. It made his life. Sadly, the man is no longer with us. He recently passed, but his dog was his everything. And we were his favorite store. Never did I have to squabble with him about anything in the way that I did with the people in Beverly Hills.
Wow.
Like, if that's not mind-blowing for people, I don't know what is.
That is. It just tells you the model is different based on location. And that we're talking like on a micro level. That is pretty wild.
Profound.
Wow. Talk about...
And those people, just for a second, those people, those low-income people, they want to do so right by their animals that they will spend their last dollar to care for them and treat them to something because it makes them feel just as good, versus these other people that just, it's a whole other thing. It's so interesting to be on the other side of it. Like, I would never think, if you asked me years ago, if that would be a takeaway that I had, but it's been a really interesting part of the business, because I think we all, just like music or art, like where you can have people from all different socioeconomic backgrounds, get together over something like a shared interest. Like, animals is the shared interest. You can cross those lines.
That's right.
It's just interesting how it translates to business as well.
That is super interesting.
Because we literally have had the highest net worth individuals in the world shop with us in Beverly Hills. And we've had a literal person who's homeless and had their cart parked outside the door. And we have something to serve everybody. And I happily will do that because we're all united with the animals.
Wow. Like any business, you're only as good as your team around you. Can you talk about, some of the challenges you've had as far as staff and kind of building your culture and kind of how you've dealt with that? I mean, 12 years is a long time, so you've got to be doing something right. So talk about, some of the challenges you guys have had and, changes to your business based on, the culture that you're building, and how much work do you put into that?
That's a loaded question.
That is a very loaded question. Super.
I think the biggest challenge is people's longevity and or commitment seems to be shrinking exponentially, not just for us, I think just in general. The new wave of employee is really challenging to manage and communicate to and motivate. And although I think that our culture and our environment and all that sort of stuff is better or different than many places, I mean, I will admit that I don't think that it's the best, although that's what I see for myself and for the company. My vision of what I want it to be is the best, but achieving that is a whole other thing. And part of it is that you really need dedicated time and an effort to do that. And, again, if you look back, hindsight, okay, what would you change? I think that that's part of it. Like, I pride myself on the culture, but yet we haven't really done enough work on it. I think my husband would argue with me on this because we see things sort of differently. But I'm not too proud to say that we maybe haven't done the best for our people. The intention was there. But because we've been so caught up with the day-to-day fires and trying to prioritize all the various things, it's really a challenge. Well, how do you then work on the culture? Like, it needs to be a daily, weekly, monthly activity. And I know the things I want to do and that I should do and I have to do, but I'm forever challenged by the priority or the other priorities that always seem to come first. Even though your people are supposed to come first, the reality is the screaming customer or the this or the that are the things that have to get done and they're on a time. Like, it's easy to just push the people thing off because it's the feel-good thing. Okay, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
That's right.
I don't know what the advice is on how to get out of that. I'm still trying to get out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, this year, that's part of why, if you notice, if you could look at our social media, I have not posted a thing in 3 full months. Tonight, well, maybe not now, but tonight was supposed to be my first post back after basically taking a little hiatus. I had to take a break because I can't keep doing all the things.
Yep.
So I personally chose to do some people stuff and work on some people things with my staff before just putting it all out there for the world.
So do you guys take time? Like, I know that you don't have a ton of time because you're working in the business as well.
Yeah, that's the other part. It's like, well, when do you do any of these things when you're 7 days a week?
Right.
I don't know. I'm still trying to find that magical answer because then, like, if you do make it happen, there's a huge cost associated to that, either a cost to business or a cost for payroll or a cost somewhere. And as a small business, you just don't have that.
You know what I've seen? I mean, if you Google your name, you'll see that you guys do have great reviews on both Yelp and on Google, which is hard to do because each location, it's location dependent. Like you said, there's different personalities at different locations. One place you're making someone happy, the next place you piss someone off.
You want to talk about reviews? How much time you got? That's its own podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the thing that's remarkable about that, it's been a while since I've looked, but for many years, I know we were the most reviewed pet business in LA, which I think that in and of itself is pretty significant. That being said, it's also really difficult to keep that rating really good with that amount or that proportion of reviews.
Yeah. You see that, the more people that you deal with, the harder it becomes because you can't make everyone happy.
No. And the thing is that just like the workforce is increasingly difficult to deal with, the customers are their own piece of work these days.
Yep.
And just as entitled as perhaps the workers, but in a different regard. And they treat you like absolute shit. I mean, I just last week, I had this woman who was like the most heinous person ever, just seething at me because this thing was taking so long and she was so nasty to me and she wanted to escalate beyond me. I go, honey, I'm the owner. Well, there must be another owner. I need to speak to somebody else. You're speaking to me and I'm telling you, I have your product. Or you can take a refund because it didn't get to you fast enough. I have the thing. You paid for it. Come and get it. Or take the refund. But if you want the refund, I need your credit card info. She wasn't having any of it and just was so horrible. And at one point, I just was like, I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to pause. And it was a really long silence. And she just couldn't believe it. I'm like, I don't know what there is to believe. I got you the thing that you needed.
Yeah.
I refuse to take any more of this abuse from customers who are just unnecessarily nasty to us. I know they say the customer is always right, but they are not. And I am not somebody's punching bag.
That's right.
The things that we have endured from people, oh my God, the Beverly Hills people literally would throw things at you and cuss you out.
Wow. You've got to create boundaries for sure.
how do you create a boundary when somebody's throwing a dog bed at you
That is
and walking
insane.
out?
Wow.
Yeah, that she paid for.
Unbelievable.
So she didn't get the return. She didn't get the money back. She threw the bed at us and walked out.
Wow. Yeah,
Dude, I've
so
got
you see-
stories for days. I should write a book.
That is another podcast for sure, you guys. I mean, looking at your Instagram, you guys have a ton of followers. I mean, you've got you're in the 6,000s. That's not easy to do. How did you guys, I mean, is that kind of organic where it's like you've been around for a while? So
it's been 100% organic. And, that was part of what I was working on today on my day off. I was just trying to strategize how to try to improve that because I'm not happy with it.
yeah.
I mean, I'm such a perfectionist. I just, again, just like with the staff thing and the culture thing, I have this vision of what I want it to be.
Yep.
How do I get it there? I have this vision for what I want the social to be. But when you don't have a team of people to do it, and it's just me, I'm kind of conflicted of how do I make it better?
Mm-hmm.
I want to improve it. I know what I want. How do I get it there?
Yeah, that's a job in itself. It really is. The whole social part takes a lot of time to get it right.
Yep.
Yeah. Rescues, are you guys working with over the years, any rescues or charities or anything like that?
Over the years, tons of stuff. One of the things that I'm most proud of is that in the last 5 years, we've been doing this thing called Roundup.
Mm-hmm.
Either Roundup for Rescue, Roundup for Animal Welfare, actually Roundup for Causes, really, because sometimes we throw a human one in there that's related to a staff or something like that, like the AIDS life cycle or prostate cancer, that sort of thing. But we've raised over $55,000 just from people's spare change.
Wow.
So when we ask you at checkout, do you want to round up for animal rescue?
Yeah.
Whether it's 1 cent, 60 cents, 23 cents, whatever, all that spare change literally has added up to over $55,000.
That's amazing.
So I'm pretty impressed by that.
Wow.
And a lot of the rescue groups that we give it to are the little ones. And it really does make a huge impact. When it's able to pay a vet bill or get them some much needed supplies or what have you. Or in the case recently of one of the local cat groups, it made the difference between them getting this mobile spay van where they had already booked in, I think they did 52 or 55 stray cats and got them fixed, sent them on their way. And it was our donation that came in right in time to make that difference. So again, shopping local supports your local community.
That's right.
and allowing them to continue doing the other good work, which is the other side of the animal industry.
That's beautiful. So tell me what's the future for you guys? What do you have planned for the future?
Well, I am trying to manifest magic very diligently to make all future plans come true.
Yeah. So you're reworking the social. That's something you want to do.
Yeah, we're reworking the company culture, which is something that I'm actively working on. But beyond that, in terms of where does Pussy and Pooch go from here, we have some other ideas for other locations and other initiatives that aren't totally locked into a particular brick and mortar location. Basically, tweaking the retail distribution model, but I can't give away my secret sauce.
Yeah.
But as I said, I am actively seeking strategic partners to make this happen. Because I can't continue doing it by myself. I need some quality professional people who believe in the vision, who want to continue changing the game.
You got to iterate, evolve.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Honestly, just info@pussyandpooch.com. Since I am an octopus and I literally do everything, even though that's our general email box, I see every email that comes in.
Okay.
I'm not timely in responding to all of them, but I see them all and I make mental notes and I respond in my head. And I do get to everything in good time.
beautiful. Thank you so much for coming out. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, we really hope you enjoyed this episode, and thanks so much for listening to the show this week. You can subscribe wherever you're listening, and we love feedback. So feel free to also leave us a review. You can also visit us on Instagram at Book with Pierre. Until next time, I'm Anthony Flores, and you're listening to The Shift, a pet service podcast.